Good morning and welcome to Worship Wednesdays. I'm Pastor Phil. We're here at the lovely sanctuary at St. Paul's in Reedland. We've got church stuff to talk about. Now, the last several weeks, last bit of time, it's been a minute, that we've been talking about the actual worship service from the confession and absolution into the service of the word, into the service of the sacrament, where we deal with communion there as the gospel proclamation. We hear how the message of the pastor inside of the service of the word and the readings themselves become the gospel proclamation in that portion. But then we also have the confession and absolution where the forgiveness of sins is actually spoken to, and in that we also have the gospel proclamation there. But all of this operates inside of a really odd calendar that we might not be overly familiar with. And I want to take a little bit to talk with you about. My intention is to discuss each and every part of the calendar as we go through it, as we realize how God is shown to us and how the calendar itself, the liturgical calendar, helps point us into the work of the Father, or of God himself and Father, Son, and Spirit, but also points us to the triune God in the major festivals. If you look at the calendar, you'll see the divisions that occur in it. And probably the first thing that strikes folks is that it's about a month off from the secular calendar. That we would normally celebrate New Year's on January 1st, but for the liturgical calendar, the first of the year is celebrated towards the end of January because the last Sunday in November is the end of the church year. And it's on that day that we spend time contemplating the end of the world, that it's very much a beginning to end scenario inside of the church calendar, so that we contemplate ourselves inside of that big picture. Now, the very first Sunday after the end of the church year brings us into the beginning of the liturgical year. And the first thing that we deal with in the liturgical year is, in fact, the season of Advent. Now, the season of Advent is important because it focuses us on the coming of the Messiah. So the season of Advent is really kind of about the Father, that we go through and we understand that God the Father's promise to us in Genesis 3 regarding the sending of his Son for the redemption of mankind. Which means that Christmas becomes focused on Jesus, but we also acknowledge, and this is something that's somewhat regularly talked about, is that Jesus is the greatest gift given to mankind, and the gift is given to us from God the Father, from Yahweh of the Old Testament. And we understand that this is the presentation of the Father's gift to us, and we rejoice in that his righteousness becomes fulfilled in his Son as he comes and walks for us. From the end of the beginning of the Christmas season all the way over to the season of the Ascension, with Easter being the high point in there. We'll get into some of the names here after a while, but the Triduum is what it's called, where we deal with Good Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter, where we hear of the passion of Jesus and his death and resurrection. All of that time becomes centered on Jesus, and we really see the work of Jesus on our behalf. God makes the promise, and we celebrate it in Advent during the Good Friday and Easter season and Lenten season. We rejoice in Jesus's fulfilling the promise of God. But it's fascinating because Jesus also makes us promise. He makes us the promise that there will be a counselor sent to be with us as we go forward. And it's in the Holy Spirit that we receive faith. It's in the Holy Spirit that we come to understand who Jesus is. It's in the Holy Spirit that our lives become transformed by the love of God. It's in the Holy Spirit that we move forward into the world proclaiming that gospel message. So the Holy Spirit also is a major part of this, and it's also the third part of the triune Godhead. And we celebrate the Holy Spirit in Pentecost, when the Spirit was given to the church as the Holy Spirit was given to the church as that counselor that Jesus promises. So the church year itself really focuses us through who God is in terms of that celebration of the triune God, but it also is seen in each of the individual seasons, and then each of those individual seasons have a color that goes along with it. The next color that will be seen in the church, if I remember correctly, is going to be red as we move into the end of the church year, because right now we're in what is known as ordinary time, that we're just celebrating following the life of Jesus. Right now we're working through following the Gospel of Matthew in hearing what Jesus has done for us, and the color is green that reminds us of the life we have in him. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do for the next several weeks is go through and we're going to discuss each of the individual seasons as they apply into the church year and affect the way we actually worship. Next week, I'm thinking we're just going to begin at the beginning and look at the season of Advent. We'll discuss its color and its focuses, how long it lasts, how it can be celebrated, and each of those things leading us into the season of Christmas. So with that, I pray that God blesses each and every one of you. I pray that everything that you need is cared for and provided, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow as we continue on inside of the Gospel of John, hearing what Jesus has to say for us today. God bless, and I'll see you then.